Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Alana Elizabeth. Hi, if you're new here. So this is the long-awaited video that I've talked about for, at this point, I feel like almost a year that I said I would make this video, and I finally took the time to actually deep dive into my records and everything. So it's as accurate as it's gonna get. So without further ado, this video is gonna be breaking down how much law school costs. Obviously with the caveat that this is how much it cost me in San Francisco and at a private school and a smaller school, like, you know, not T20 or anything like that. So if you're watching this and you're thinking about going to law school, yay you. Just keep that in mind. Like, this is specifically at my school in this city. Each city is different. So this is all something you should take into consideration when you're choosing where to go, because it'll depend how much everything is. So if I'm looking down, it's because I literally have notes. I went back and looked at how much my deposit was, my second deposit, how much I spent on textbook, other things that I used that were like part of what were school. I also included food and housing, obviously tuition, and all that good stuff. Also, a note that I definitely took out the loans. Like, loans were the way I was surviving. I did have a part-time job my second year of law school and 2 part-time jobs my third year of law school, but they were nowhere near enough to cover tuition or housing. Honestly, or housing for that matter. So it was just enough for like my books and for me to feel comfortable going out with my friends, basically. So I did take out a ton of loans, and again, do with that what you will. I feel like a lot of people are nervous about taking out loans for law school, or the fact that it's so much that you're taking out. But the way that a mentor of mine told me when I was younger, and that honestly I see the same way, education is an investment. Law school is definitely going to be an investment in yourself, in your future. So if people spend X money on cars, you can spend X money on getting your law degree. That's how I think about it. So I wasn't stressed about taking out loans. I knew since I was in high school that the only way I would be getting my education would be through loans. So that is something that I didn't worry about, because I just knew that it was a fact. It was what it had to be in order for me to reach this goal. And I also will say that I always did have in mind the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program, PSLF, which means that after making a certain amount of payment, period of 10 years, the rest of the loans get forgiven. So even more reason why I wasn't really worried about loans. I always knew that I would be going into public interest and that I would be using that program really to finish paying off my loans. Okay, so that was a lot of just caveat. Obviously, don't take this as advice. I am just breaking down how much it all cost me so that people aren't going blind into this, and that they know how much everything's going. And I know that, I made a video at the beginning of law school talking about the stuff that I was seeing on my screen and everything, and it was very confusing. So that's just another reason why I wanted to make this video, because I know that even though we are given packets and things telling you how much law school is going to cost, etc., it's really confusing. And I found that to be very overwhelming. And I basically went through law school essentially blind. Like, I knew what I was signing up for in terms of loans, and that's pretty much it. Like, I tried to be cost savvy in law school in terms of not buying books new, not going out every day, cooking my meals at home, meal prepping for the week, and not trying to spend that much money. Like, I definitely was not buying coffee every day, that sort of thing. But I also wasn't being like extremely friendly. Like, I wasn't really looking at multiple book vendors. I was just looking at one and being like, rent, and that's it. Like, I wasn't going out of my way to save money, but I also wasn't going out of my way to spend it. So all that being said, my total amount of loans that I have is $219,000, which sounds like a lot, but that is 3 years worth of tuition, living expenses, and everything else that law school costs. So starting at the very beginning, if you're completely new and you're barely considering law school, the seat deposit that I made to my particular law school was $270. And then I'm going to guesstimate that it was like around $350 for the second seat deposit. So in total, like $700. And that's just to decide to go to the school. My cost for applying to schools was $270. I applied to 7 schools. So there will be applications. You can also fill out waivers and reach out to the deans of the schools, like admissions, about waiving your fee. This is where I wasn't actually but just savvy because I didn't bother doing that. Like I was like, that's too much work, I don't want to do it. So I just paid $270 to apply to the 7 schools that I applied for. Again, take with that as you will. So that was like all pre-costs. And then in terms of upfront costs to start my first year of law school, I paid around $100 for school supplies. And by school supplies, I mean like I got spiral bound notebooks, I got highlighters, sticky notes, the little tabs that you put in your book, that sort of thing. I think I got like staplers and pens and pencils and things like that, in a backpack. So all of that put together was about $100. I will say that I personally I had to get a new laptop because I had an HP that I had for 7 years and it certainly wasn't going to make it 3 years of law school. So I bought a MacBook Pro going into my first year of law school. So that was an added expense that I spent, about $2,000. So you may not have to get a new laptop, and if you keep your supplies on the cheaper side, then that could be something where you can save money. I was literally getting the like $1 notebooks. Like I wasn't getting the 5-star one, like the fat one with the little folder that costs like $5. Like I was not doing that. I was definitely getting your basic college ruled notebook. I mean, some people even take notes on their laptop, so they don't even need to get notebooks. So that's something that you might be saving yourself money on. But in terms of the cost of school, I basically I literally broke it down by like month. My first year of law school, in October, I spent like $30. In November, around $20. In December, I don't know how this happened, but like $5 and like $65, $260, $300, $10. So added up, it was about like $1,000 on food my first year of law school. And then for books, it was also around $1,000. And in terms of like the 2 semesters. So overall, it was basically costing, like in total, the 3 years, it was essentially $3K on food, $3K on books. And then I will say I did have a Quibi subscription that I shared with my friend Elisa. She was the one who actually had the account. So I paid her the money and we split that cost. I think alone, I was paying like half of it, so like $15. So I spent like maybe $300 per year for Quibi, but it would have been double that if I was doing it alone. So pro tip, make a friend who's also trying to save money and split costs like that. I know that there are other resources that people use in law school from people that I followed on Instagram in law school in different places, but Quibi is the only like commercial use that I had. Other than that, my books, my professors, and my own notes. Besides Quibi, I didn't have other subscriptions. I didn't use other programs or anything like that. Just Quibi. But that could be pretty expensive if you're doing it alone. So I would recommend finding someone to share that with. As for tuition, it was like $75,000 a year. I think it went up every year, honestly, from what I remember. So it's like all of that put together is what like it's adding 219, and housing is included in that amount. I lived in school housing my first year. I remember that was costing me like $8,000 per semester, I think. And then I moved out of school housing because that was definitely more expensive than like market price was, even for San Francisco. And I was paying, I think like $1,300 in rent per month, just a room. I had 2 other housemates, and then I moved again my last year and I was paying like under $1,200 per month, still this time with 3 housemates. So that'll definitely depend on what city you're in, but that is something definitely to keep in mind. So I think rounding up to like other costs, like including tuition and housing and food and books and like the extra Quibi subscription, I basically ended up spending like $230K in San Francisco, 219 being loans and the rest of it coming from either my job or like savings that I had and like other miscellaneous costs that I was doing throughout. And yeah, like that's essentially it. I think the most expensive thing, obviously, besides tuition and housing, are going to be your books. I think food is where you can probably save money, but that's essentially, again, the most accurate breakdown I can get, because it's like tuition was changing, everything was just like very fluid, like things were changing rapidly, and it's not like I was keeping track of my costs necessarily through law school. I was just keeping like a round number, but that is how much law school ended up costing me. I will say that the $219,000 number doesn't include bar costs at the end of the year. So that cost me, I think it was like easily like $3,000 in total, in terms of getting like paying for Themis, paying for taking the bar like to the state, to California bar. Something to keep in mind. I mean, probably too soon for you if you're thinking about it going in, but if you do have like savings, I worked I took a gap year between college and law school, and in that year I worked full time, and I tried my best to save the most money I could going into law school, because I knew that at least for that first year I wasn't going to be working. So if I needed anything, sure I had something to rely on. There are additional costs that comes in during law school that is apart from like your loan, in terms of going to networking events and things like that. But I know that those things can cost money, depending if you're registering for events. Like usually there's like a student discount, so like 20 to 30, maybe, I mean, I think at most 50 is what I heard people paying. I doubt that's really what they were going for. I think it was mostly like $40. But people were definitely doing that, and like they were going to events and things like that, and so those would be registration costs of things that you'd be paying for yourself. But I didn't do any of that. That is another cost that I know people spent on. So keep that in mind, and I would say just talked about all these things, but I'll go ahead and like add a more succinct picture and look at what all this was, so that if you want to pause it and look at it, yeah, that's just what law school costed me. Again, it could depend on the city, the school, what you're doing. I mean, in the public interest world, I know that there wasn't many things that was required of me. I feel like if you're going into tech or corporate, it is more expected, and you would want to be going to more of those events and conferences and things like that. And I think that could probably cost you more money, but I have no idea, and I would not speak on that, because that's not something I did. Although I just remember that law school is an investment. Elisa and I talked about it in our The Truth About Law School videos. That was part 1 and part 2, in terms of how we viewed law school as an investment. Like our finances were different. We did get scholarships going in, and I also did get like a reoccurring scholarship during that was internal to my law school. So just keep all of that in mind. Like as you're going into it, it can be very overwhelming. And at the end of the day, I think if you would want to like talk to someone, I'm like, at least for me, my law school staff was very friendly. I think if I had felt as confident as I feel now coming out of law school going into it, I would just go talk to them and like try and get like more answers or more help in terms of like planning for it. But again, in my specific case, knowing that I was going to do PSLF later, and knowing that I wasn't going to have much of a choice anyway in terms of bringing money to the table, I knew loans were going to be part of my story regardless. So I wasn't too worried. Maybe I could have ended up with less if I had done more of those things, but whatever. I feel like I'm not too stressed about it, but I know it is a stressing subject, and that's why this video had been requested before, and I just hadn't gotten around to it because I had to go back into like my old records in terms of like what I was paying, and like the breakdown in school and things like that, and like looking at my own bank statements to see like what I was spending overall. And yeah, I feel like I was a pretty average student in terms of money that I was spending outside of books. I think I would go out maybe once a week, and even that seems like a lot, but I was definitely spending money in the school cafe, getting snacks, and then when I was going grocery shopping, I was like buying things that I didn't need to get, and like popcorn and like chips and like candy and things like that, and like all of that stuff costs more than like your average like groceries in terms of like getting vegetables and fruits. So it just adds up differently. Like that 1 year breakdown, like $5 in December for food seems really low. Like, did I not eat that much? And to be fair, I guess 2 weeks I spent at home and like for Christmas break, and obviously I wasn't getting groceries then. And then that first week of December is finals anyway. So it's like, I guess I wasn't really spending. That seems sus to me, but that's what was on my bank statement in terms of cost. I did like cut out, I had a Netflix subscription, but I didn't have Prime throughout the whole time. And I was definitely not paying for like Spotify and things like that. Like, I kept my costs like outside of law school low as well, so as to not be just spending more money than I had at that time. But yeah, anyway, I feel like I rambled. It's kind of a long video. I hope this was minutely helpful. And for y'all who requested it, sorry for taking so long. I hope you're not disappointed by this video. And yeah, go back to that earlier time where I put up that typed up breakdown so that you can pause it and take a look at it. But I would again just recommend honestly that you talk to your own school staff and get help directly from where you're planning on going or thinking about going. And also maybe reach out to students that are going to that school to ask specific questions about things if you have it. Being said, I will say goodbye. Thank you for watching. Please let me know what videos you want to see. And this time, I promise I will not take that long. I'm actually uploading now in a cadence, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. So I have more time now that I am employed and working a 9-to-5 job instead of studying 24/7 or thinking about law school 24/7. And yeah, I was looking at old videos and I realized my eye bags were disgusting. I looked so ugly and tired all the time. And it's like, that's crazy. Who let me turn my camera on when I was looking like that? Anyway, I digress. Bye. Thanks for watching.